Last Friday, a Kansas police department raided a local newspaper, the Marion County Record, and the home of the Marion County Record's publisher, leading to the death of his elderly mother. That's right, a police department attacked a newspaper outlet. Why did this happen? This is a massive story, even though it took place in a small town. And let's get to the bottom of it, because it's definitely not over. The Marion County Record said in its own published reports that police raided the newspaper's office on Friday, seizing the newspaper's computers, phones, and file server, and the personal cell phones of staff based on the search warrant. One Record reporter said that one of her fingers was injured when the Marion Police Chief Gideon Cody wrested her cell phone out of her hand. Why are the police raiding the home? We'll get into it, but they also didn't stop at the actual HQ or the newspaper headquarters and their offices. They went to the home of the publisher, a man named Eric Meyer, and they seized his computers, his cell phone, and the home's internet router, Meyer said. Meyer's 98-year-old mother, Joan Meyer, who lives in the home with her son, collapsed and died Saturday, Meyer said. This is a day after. Something that he blames on the stress of her home being raided. Yeah, you think? So Meyer, the publisher of Marion County Record, said this is the type of stuff that Vladimir Putin does, the third world dictators do. This is Gestapo tactics from World War II. Well, that's the Gestapo, but who's Putin? Who's Hitler? Who is ordering the raid of this newspaper and their offices? That we have to dig deep, because it seems like it's petty AF. Meyer said that the newspaper's report believes that the raid was prompted by a story published last week about a local restaurant owner, Carrie Newell. Newell had police remove Meyer and a newspaper reporter from her restaurant earlier this month, who were there to cover a public reception for US Representative Jake LaTurner, a Republican representing the area. The police chief and other officials were also at the reception, and the Marion Police Department highlighted the event on its Facebook page. So you got Republicans and the cops there at this reception for this restaurateur, or at this woman's restaurant, and then the local papers just covering what was going on, and they were removed from this event. But that's not all, because the next week at a city council meeting, Newell, the restaurateur, publicly accused the newspaper of using illegal means to get information on a drunk driving conviction against her. The newspaper countered that it received that information unsolicited, which it sought to verify through public online records. It eventually decided not to run that story on the DUI, but it did run a story on the city council meeting, which Newell confirmed the 2008 DUI herself. So they ran a story about this restaurant owner and her DUI that she admitted to in this city council meeting, which got the cops sicked on the paper, it seemed. Newell has said that the Record engages in tabloid trash reporting. Sorry, the Marion Record is the name of the newspaper, and was trying to hush her up. I fully believe the intent was to do harm and merely tarnish my reputation. I think if it had been left out, I don't think that it would have blown up as big as it was. What? Now, here's the crazy part about this whole thing. Apparently, there needs to be probable cause, obviously, to raid a newspaper, and in order to have a search warrant to actually raid this newspaper. And it seems like there was no affidavit that on file, like the district doesn't have an affidavit that would have led to that raid. So the newspaper doesn't even know if there was a legal raid or an illegal raid, but the police chief is defending himself, saying that in an email to the AP that while federal law usually requires a subpoena, not just a search warrant to raid a newsroom, there's an exception when there is reason to believe the journalist is taking part in the underlying wrongdoing. Pretty sure that's not an illegal thing, but I don't know, Ray, if you have thoughts on whether or not the cops can just be like, nah, but the journalist was doing wrongdoing. I don't need an affidavit.
I mean, it's an absurd defense. Of course, they're gonna try to, first, you shouldn't expect a police officer to be familiar with the law, not even a police chief. They have to do very little schooling to familiarize themselves with the law. Lawyers have to go through 3 years of school to pass the bar. Some places, people can be deputized to execute the law as police officers with absolutely zero underlying requirements. That being said, it's absolutely just trying to cover their own asses. Of course, it's absolutely important that she was hosting this reception where the police were invited guests and they highlighted it on their Facebook page. Clearly they're buddy. We see this happen all the time. And right wingers will have you believe that the media, the absolute worst thing that happens to the media is they get called out at a press conference by Trump or something, or he says, get out of here. Or, when Kari Lake invites a photographer from the New York Times to milk a bull at the Iowa State Fair. This is actual attacks on the First Amendment. This is actual attacks on the freedom of the press. They didn't even publish the story that was in question. Their confirmation that she had the DUI was based on her own admission of it at a city council meeting. That was the only reason they ran the story, was because she confirmed it. There's absolutely no underlying wrongdoing, because if someone had provided her with someone had provided him with private documents that proved that she had the DUI, it wouldn't have mattered. He didn't run the story. He didn't run it until she confirmed that she had the DUI herself. So there was, even with his BS excuse, there was no underlying wrongdoing.
Yeah, no, and it is a massive attack on the media, and yet kind of, to this editor's point, it is what an authoritarian regime does. And that's kind of what the Kari Lakes, the Donald Trumps, that's what MAGA wants is, look, if you're not going to suppress a story that makes me look bad, even though I admitted it on a public record in a city council meeting, I admitted this, which is it's a DUI. I don't understand. It's not you're not embezzling. It's a DUI. It's whatever, right? People get DUIs, but it's that, and saying no, the cops are going to do the bidding of politicians but not just the politicians and their rich friends who own restaurants. And as long as they're all working together, yeah, who cares that your 98-year-old grandmother or mother dies and that we stole all of these materials from your office? I mean, these are the attacks. Screw the New York Times, the AP, whatnot. These are the attacks on local media that are leading to the demise and the decline of actual local news, to say nothing of the fact they're being all swallowed by massive corporations and don't have enough money and have to wait for Jeff Bezos to bail them out,
What I really want to know is what the hell are they going to do with his internet router?
Yeah, what are you doing?
What are they going to get from his internet router?
I love, it's I don't know. I love how I'm sure some subreddit is no, we'll figure it out. There's information on the router. It's no, there's no information on the router. See, that's not how routers, oh God. Yeah, but the 5G, oh God. Anyway.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.